Dear viewers, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Spectrum. AI, artificial intelligence, has become part and parcel of our daily lives. And since its inception, we heard a lot of loud voices that commend and those that condemn. So, what are the pros and the cons of AI? What is fact and what is fiction? To delve deeper, I'm really delighted today to be accompanied by Karim Shalabi, who is a software architect, to take us deeper into the crypts of this topic. So, Karim, hello and welcome to the program.
Hello, Mohammed. Hello, viewers, and thank you so much for having me today.
It's really a pleasure, and it's such a hot topic these days, definitely. Um, what are some common myths about artificial intelligence that you often hear?
Okay, well, there's quite a lot, but some of the very common ones. People think of AI as a magic wand that is gonna be here and solve everything. It's gonna have the answer to all the unknowns, which is quite troubling to some extent that someone would believe such a myth. AI, or, or or generally speaking, the field of technology is evolving every day. And when it comes to AI, it's in its very early stages. There is a lot of innovation, a lot of work to be done to be able to get to a certain extent where would it be um, uh, remotely code and or defined as a magic wand that can help us solve or answer some of the questions. So that's one thing, and another one I'm sure that that is very common is AI taking over the world. It's an idea that has been there for ages, and again, we are remotely from being there. AI is just a tool that makes our life easier. We developed it; we have total control on it to some extent. Um, um, and and yeah, it's not definitely it's not taking over the world today or in the near future for sure. Um,
So
and
we'll definitely touch upon this and go deeper. But what I want to ask you about is like when we mention AI, like you said, some people are skeptics, some people are fearful again that it might take over and so on. So would you consider this time as the infancy of AI? Like, are we there yet? Are we still in the very beginning? Like, are we taking these baby steps in AI, or are we starting to take some major leaps?
uh, there, I wouldn't say we had major leaps, but we definitely had a few breakthroughs over the past decades. The subject of AI in technology specifically has been there since the 1940s, with the birth of the very first computer. But uh, AI is still in its very infant stages. I mean, when you describe it as a tool that can mimic human actions, we're definitely not there yet. We definitely didn't have a major leap in that uh, uh, aspect, but we are getting there with a few breakthroughs and a few improvements that have been there over the years.
And what are the prospects of the future? Like how far, what are our aspirations for the future? What are we trying to do with AI? What is the target now? Like, so you said that some people that you pointed at as fiction, which is AI taking over the world. But would AI like complement something? Would be like where would AI fit? Like, let's say 10 or 20 years from now. Are we talking about like a personal robot, a domestic robot in the house? Are we talking about like something like an exoskeleton, something like a cyborg, like half human, half android? Like, where are we going? Like,
Both
what is our aim? What is our target?
both examples that you've said, a cyborg or a humanoid or a robot, are both very realistic, and there is a lot of research that are being done in each of those areas. But the goal is the same for both. We're always looking for tools to make our lives easier. Um, uh, in both examples, a human like robot, we're trying to build one to do chores that we don't like. Human beings are always evolving and are always looking for more tools to make them more happy, have some more time for themselves. Uh, that brings us to a philosophical question: what makes us happy, or what are we actually looking to do with our time? Certainly not vacationing all the time, but let's not get into that. Uh, AIs or some of the robot examples that you've shared are we're trying to get there only to make our life easier. Things that can help us with tedious or basic, simple daily tasks.
And the basic fear that people have, like starting from, like I would say, very primitive things today, like a calculator or even a GPS, these are like, like are givens today. And at the same time, like people warning against dementia, Alzheimer's, and because with the more we depend on AI, the less we use our basic intellect. And we hardly use our sense of space, basic arithmetic, and as the saying goes, use it or lose it. And since we're not using several parts of our brain, these parts will start to diminish and will cease to work completely. So, do you think that AI can um, limit human intellect in the future?
Well, no, generally speaking, again, our dependency on technology will definitely make a difference. Pretty much the same, the very example that you used, the calculators. I mean, bring any 50 or 60-year old and give them a simple arithmetic calculation as opposed to a 20-year-old, and you will see a huge difference, a huge gap. But I wouldn't necessarily correlate this with the decline of our abilities. I would say we will evolve differently. The 20-year-old are exposed to more more has more awareness of existential subjects and topics and and pretty much exposure to a lot of different topics that the 60-year-old didn't realize until a very late age. I'm not saying that this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it simply shows how this person evolved depending on technology. It accelerated his brain development. Not just, I'm not obviously not talking about arithmetic capabilities, but giving his mind the ability to offload some of this calculations to a tool like a calculator or using tools like a computer has enabled him to evolve in a different and a more accelerated way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I totally hear you here. And because there's always the ethical and moral component connected with AI here. So, if people would imagine in the future that we would have an android nanny, okay, that would stay with the children, and to what extent are is an AR, an android, or humanoid task oriented? How wide is the scope of an android? Um, like how big is its mandate? For example, would it be programmed, okay, so it would sort of try to innovate and use its artificial intelligence to make the child happy no matter what? So eventually, the child who doesn't know better would definitely prefer his android nanny to his mother or to his father, or always have buts and ifs, and they always have these restrictions. Well, this other nanny is just like extremely resourceful and innovative in making him or her happy. Isn't
Okay,
this
yes.
fear in the future?
Well, as much as the idea is very scary, leaving a kid with a robot nanny, but I think what you just said is has a hidden assumption that the robot nanny or the AI powered nanny, by making the child or making sure that child is always happy, that this implies that it is always spoiling him in a negative way. And that's not true. Remember, our kids, we spoil our kids more than their teachers at school spoil them. And at the end of the day, they love their teachers more. They enjoy the time over there more. Even though it's very disciplined, it's very structured in a way to teach them, uh, they still enjoy that time and they are happy at school. Not saying that it's a general rule, or it's the case all the time. I'm simply trying to argue that a programmed nanny can teach a child in a very good way in our measures, yet it would make him happy and engaged in throughout the process.
And we've seen some humanoids that would mimic human facial expressions, and they don't have tear buds yet, but maybe in the next generation this will
That's
come.
the easiest part.
Absolutely. But do you think we can have artificial emotions, like real emotions? Would we ever see a robot or that would have genuine feelings that can really know when to sympathize or empathize with someone? Would would that ever happen? Like, are we going to have also artificial emotions? Because maybe robots can have feelings, they can have the five senses, maybe. But how about emotions? Like, can we?
The question is really, do you think we can program that into a robot or an
Hmm.
AI program? I don't think we are there yet. Yet there is a lot of research being done in that space. I know there was a paper published last year at the University of Madrid. They are trying to mimic the effect of dopamine, the neurotransmitter, into an autonomous program or autonomous robot. Uh, we are looking into getting there, but we're not there yet. We are far from being there. Because remember, we have a lot to discover about ourselves as human beings yet. We know nothing, not nothing, but we know very limited information about how our brains work and how uh, the whole science of neurology uh, and the human beings. So to be able to mimic that into a different thing that we created, it will take us some time. Uh,
And moving to another paradigm here, which is this Android thing. Like, is there any way that we can have some form of integration between AI and human biological brain? So, like,
Again,
can we have like this chip inserted? Like a lot of talk about the chip, and so do you see this coming? Like, this AI would be part of us, so I will not need to resort to an external body to, interact with the internet or whatever. Like it's within me.
that's a very fascinating idea, but again, there is a lot of research, and actually, there is a lot of industrial research. I'm pretty sure that are aware of Elon Musk and what
Yeah.
he is doing in that space. And they actually last year, I know that they started a few clinical trials implementing that chip into someone's head.
For blind people, for like people with different kinds of like impairments or like disabilities. That's what we've heard. So people are visually impaired. They have like future hopes of being able to see.
Absolutely, it will help a lot of people with some certain disabilities, but it will also help normal people to amplify some of their skills, uh, uh, doing calculations faster, as you mentioned, get connected to the internet. So instead of you picking up your phone and search something on Google or whatever search engine, you would simply think about it, and the chip would go fetch the information and feed it back to your brain, or put it on your eye as a screen, as if you are virtually looking at something. So applications are limitless, and again, that's true for a lot of industries, not just medically with people with disabilities.
And something like the exoskeleton, it's something that is already in use by some military personnel, some people with some disabilities, some impairments, like it's on trial basis. But do you see this coming into the future, like us wearing the robot instead of dealing with the robot? Like we would wear the robot, and like you said, it would amplify our ability. So with this robot, I can lift tons with my hands. I can run like kilometers, like I can run a marathon without being like a professional sports player or something. Do you see this coming as something that would be open to the public in 10 years from now, for instance?
I definitely see it coming, and I know there is a lot of research in that space. But being what it is, exactly as you described, amplifying our physical abilities, carrying heavier objects, running for further distance. Most of the research are funded by government and military entities, and it's not so much open to the general public as it is with the other examples of AI. But we'll get there.
So, like you're saying, in the near future, it might be more confined to the military use, but eventually later on, there might be like you know um, a wider use of it for the public. So that would enable humans maybe to fly, to dive under the water, and so we will no longer be needing vehicles or like consoles or like computers per se. Everything will be within us or like would be part of us at the same time.
Correct.
Now, with all of these things coming to picture, like what kind of new jobs or professions would you see coming in the future with AI, and what kinds of jobs will sort of fade away by time because of AI. And this is a great fear for many people.
Of course it is. But just like any technology, and this actually goes for the IT industry in general, or the technology field. It ever since we've seen the very first forms of computers and servers, IT and internet, what it did is it changed how some industries work. It changed some professions. I wouldn't say it cut jobs down, but it will definitely change, evolve some fields, some industry, and will change the way people go about them. For instance, uh, some of the existing today AI agents are being utilized in spaces like in the medical industry, doing analyzing data, doing patient intake, collecting historical data about a certain patient and other patients, and in the end, it would try to do the assessment, the diagnosis, and maybe even propose certain treatments. But this there's no way that this one day, or maybe we're not there yet, but as of today it will not replace um, uh, a doctor or a dentist. It will only help them make better use of their time, become more efficient. So doing this initial assessment would save a ton of time to the doctor, now that he offloaded big part of the analysis, and he would just read the highlights and see the suggested diagnosis, and it's up to the professional to then assess if it's correct or not. uh,
But
so in
on the other hand, like again, if you're looking maybe in the, I wouldn't say the very near future, but eventually in the future, like if you're talking about a surgeon, who would have a more steady hand? Definitely, humanoid would have a more steady hand. Again, if we're talking about an assembly line, which is something we're seeing right now, actually, like I can turn on the assembly line at midnight, 4 a.m., and I can make them work during Christmas time, Easter time, like all different breaks. They would never fuss. They would never ask for a raise. They would never say that these are not human conditions because they're not human in the first place. So, for me, as a business owner, uh, they're like much more efficient, and they reduce the cost. And so, thereby, like a lot of workers will lose their jobs in all different fields because always, like the Android would give a much better alternative with less fuss. Like it doesn't fuss. An Android doesn't have any political or religious views, doesn't care about any controversial things. They don't have unions. And so definitely it would be much more appealing for me as a business owner to have androids rather than to have humans.
you kept saying definitely on all your statements. Do you have any research that back that up?
I don't like, I'm just thinking like maybe I'm
I'm
wrong.
sorry, I'm messing with you, but
No,
I'll
no,
have to
no.
totally
But I
disagree.
definitely hear you. And yes, like nothing is 100% sure for sure. But like just thinking like with a very pragmatic
Yeah.
human instinct.
So
Uh, what most important thing for me is like cost and uh,
uh
and getting the job done in the most efficient and the shortest time possible.
okay. Uh so this brings me back to the beginning of our conversation, the very first question, which is what are common myths around AI? Is that and one thing that I forgot to mention is people always think that AI tools or robots or those things are always 100% right. That is not true. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term called AI hallucination. Are you familiar with that? It,
I've heard a thing or two, but I would definitely appreciate if you further clarify and elaborate, and for our viewers as well.
so AI hallucination is a concept, not a concept, but it's a term that is that this basically this it's self describing. So it's when AI gives wrong responses. It started to
Mhm.
hallucinate and this became very common in the recent years with the emergence of Chat GPT
Mhm.
and DeepSeek and other AI chatbots. If you would ask them a question, they don't know the answer. They don't have any data that relates to what you've asked, and they are very much compelled to still generate an answer, give an answer back, and most of the time it will be 100% wrong. Now that's an extreme. And I know that's not what, yeah, you were talking about, what you're referring to, but there are degrees to that. And I beg to differ. I don't think any tool or any AI agent or any robot that we use today to make our lives easier can do something a human being can't, or can be more efficient. Yes, it is more efficient when you take the entire human race, but there are always this person who can excel at a certain field or in a certain subject and can definitely, without a doubt, be much more productive and more efficient in what he does over an android or a robot.
So, do you see AI as a friend or foe? Because, like with things like deepfake, etc., and all of these softwares that are out there that can generate AI pictures, videos, eliminate things that are in original videos, original pictures. I can impersonate anyone I want with the same, facial features, same voice, same everything. Um, isn't this imminent danger?
Which it is a very it's a it's a very imminent danger, as you said, but that's why it's very important to have governance and regulations around AI. Not just in terms of laws, but in terms of applications or other programs monitoring and controlling AI. And actually takes us back to the previous question, which is the importance of having human beings involved in whatever action AI is doing. So, as we said early on, AI is a friend, is here to help us become more efficient and to offload some tedious tasks off our plate. But in the same time, you would still need someone to monitor that AI and make sure it's doing the job right. Make sure it's not being misused. It's not being uh, used maliciously or what have you. And always remember one thing: AI or the androids, they lack the human judgment. They don't have values. They don't have morals or ethics. And I'm pretty sure you're very familiar with the example that everyone uses. Imagine an autonomous vehicle coming to an intersection with an imminent impact. Would it hit the 2 year old or the 90-year-old person? It's a tough question to answer as a human being, but for an AI or an autonomous vehicle, it certainly doesn't have the values or the programming it needs to make a decision in such scenario.
Um, again, always with any kind of technology and software, and you're a software architect, and definitely you're certainly much more experienced with that. Like there's always a possibility of hacking something. And
Uh-huh.
like for example, like dynamite sticks were originally used to for mining, but later on they were used to kill people. So there's always the fear of maybe like, yeah, AI is initially made to serve humans, but we cannot, always, completely avoid sinister uses and ideas. So again, what if somebody like, let's say, go back again to my example here, like the Android nanny. And then what if somebody hacks this nanny or goes into her brain? Isn't there like a great danger for the child that this nanny is looking after? And this is
That,
just an example. And definitely the thing can go in like medical operations, in productions, etc., etc.
that's a very good question, and it brings the subject of accountability. Picture this: your nanny did something terribly wrong with your child. So who's accountable here? Is it you for using the nanny in the first place, or the developer who developed the code for the nanny, or the engineer who designed the nanny, or 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 the company that sold it? Who's responsible, or the third party that you injected in your scenario, the sinister that hacked the nanny and forced it into doing something wrong? And so again, it's a tough question. Uh, in case it's being hacked, you can easily see how the sinister is at wrong here. But also, it shows you how important it is to control the nanny, to always have that subject matter expert in that field or the responsible person that filters or approves the decision of the nanny before it actually commits it. So you could have avoided all of this if you have programmed your nanny to get back to you for confirmation before it acts on something that critical or something that can result in a disaster. Pretty much in the same way as I used in my other example for the in the medical field where the AI agent gave a diagnosis and proposed a treatment for a certain patient. You definitely still need that me or a subject matter expert to look into that before actually following the AI recommendation. And in both examples, you can clearly see how AI in both cases are just tools that are available to us to use. It's really it really falls upon us all the responsibilities and all the outcomes that come from that. If I blindly assume that an AI agent or an AI robot is always right, I will definitely maybe 99% of the time that is true, but I'll definitely get stuck at that 1%, and I'll have to face whatever disaster or consequences that would come after.
Again, going back to fiction, which is fiction so far, actually. So it's very famous 1999 film, Bicentennial Man by Robin Williams. And it imagines the near future, actually, where a family would have a domestic robot. And this robot has this term that is used in this film. And as far as as I know, this is not a realistic term yet, which is positronic brain. And this robot has its own ethics and morals. And even before, starting to work with the family, he demonstrated and showed them that he knows the specific rules and ethics and things like that. And this robot was able to teach itself, charge itself, repair itself, even if repairment is needed. And then the story went so far to the end that this robot dreamt of becoming a human. And he dreamt of becoming a mortal being instead of an immortal being. And so, what is possible and what is absolutely impossible in this story? In let's
Well,
say in 50 years from now.
well, it's tough. You now you're asking me questions about movies and movies and imagination. When it comes to movies, is uncontrolled, is limitless. Um, uh,
Just before, because you remind me of something like I remember as a child actually there was a TV series that was called Space 1999, and in this TV series that was called Space 1999, there was like something like a cell phone. And this was absolute fiction. A cell phone with a camera. And this was absolute fiction, but it became true later on. I witnessed both sides. I witnessed this as science fiction, and now I have it. So, do you see this like maybe our children or maybe our grandchildren might have this bicentennial man, this robot that is almost human?
Definitely, yes. I mean, over the past few years, you've seen a lot of expos and conferences with where some manufacturers showcase their humanoids or human robots, human-looking robots that do certain tasks or even multiple of them. And you know what? People have been dazzled by this idea of creating humanoids or being able to create life in a form of a robot. It, and we always get there. Starting with, I'll tell you this. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the some of the Greek mythology. Uh, you know that I I don't want to say something wrong, but I know that maybe the gods lived on the island of Crete,
On
or
Mount Olympus, like the Greek
on,
gods lived on the Mount Olympus.
exactly, and this
Yes.
was uh, protected by robots. They called it automata, and and statues made of bronze that would just stand tall and still. And when someone approaches the island of Crete, they would start automatically attacking them and protecting the island and protecting the gods. And similar stories in the medieval times about golems and creating a robot from clay, and I don't recall, feed it with certain stuff and it would come to life. Uh, when you think about it, we are there. Now we have systems that are still the whole time missiles and would protect our airspace
Mhm.
if an attack is there or a certain aircraft that flies into our air zone or what have you. It's just the application. I mean, up until this point, we didn't have to build that robot that protect the our borders or something like that. But in the same sense,
Yeah.
we created what we needed.
Can we have
Now,
like something like the troopers of Star Wars? Like these troopers of like an army of robots with
yeah, but drones are much more effective. Your troopers now can fly instead of running on the
Hmm,
ground. They simply fly and do
okay.
the same job, right?
Yeah.
So we are there. It looks a bit different, and it relates more to our today needs. Um, uh, in the same sense, if we're talking research, of course, I can't speculate and give you a number on when we will have that bi-essential man in our household helping us and being part of the family. But in less than 50 years, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe even sooner than that, because there is a lot of research and there is the needs. Uh, you need it to do the basic house chores.
Hmm.
You need it to help kids learn faster. You need it to monitor someone who is sick or with a certain disability and be proactive in identifying problems, calling emergency services when needed. You need it for emotional support to people who feel alone or don't have a lot of other people around them to interact with. So
Hmm.
the applications are a lot, are true, are there. So we'll definitely, with the amount of research and work being done today, we'll definitely get there in a decade or so.
Like last but never least, actually, and which is might be a very promising, but at the same time a very scary thing is, do you see that we're in the threshold or approaching the threshold of bridging the gap between what's electronic and what is biological? So, are we aiming to create this invincible human, like a forever young human? So, like, no need for glasses, for hearing aids, no like aging would happen. There are no limits to like so. Um, I will not need a machine to fly. I'll not need a machine to live under the water for days if I need so. Um, are we trying to create this superhuman like this like Iron Man, for instance? Are we trying to create something like this in the future with all of its positive and negative prospects?
Uh, uh, Again, this goes back to what we need. So take your Iron Man, for example. I don't think there is research uh, uh, that is looking into creating an Iron Man suit. Why would you need a human inside the suit when you can build the suit and let it fly and do the job, do the kicking and the fighting and the bombing or what have you. Adding a human inside will only make it weak and will create some risk. Um,
But what I'm thinking of is not actually exactly the Iron Man, but no, like you like the biological and the electronic becoming one. Like
yeah,
there like would be so the electronic part would be integrated within us.
yeah.
So I no longer need a telescope to see, like I can look at the galaxies with the naked eye
Uh,
and and everything like with all the five senses would be superhuman senses with speed and power, etc., etc.
uh, we'll definitely get there. I wouldn't say we've reached the threshold. We are just beginning, and I think it will with the amount of research being done in both fields, in terms of technology and science and in biology, uh, we will get there. We will get. um, uh, add-ons that would amplify our abilities and senses.
And Kareem, would you just like finally give an advice as an expert in this field, as someone who's knowledgeable in this field to people? Like, what
Uh,
are like the pros and cons, or like basically like what should they watch out for when they deal with AI, with themselves or with the younger generation?
uh, Sorry, give advice
So you'd give advice to our audience here when
to
dealing
our
with
audience.
AI. Yeah, what should they watch out for themselves or for their children?
Okay, so a few important things. Uh, Always be careful what you share with whatever form of AI you are experimenting with or using for professional use. Um, because a lot of AI tools, especially chatbots, use your data. They build information around you without you knowing. And they have total control over the data. They can share it with other people or organization. So always be mindful to this fact. Always be very careful of what you share and what you give away. That is one important thing. The other thing is always, as we discussed in most of our examples during this talk, uh, always verify the information or the recommendation or the responses that you get from those AI tools or chatbots. Look out for hallucination, as we mentioned. Sometimes the replies will be wrong. So, as I always advise my kids, this is a good starting point. When you go and ask a chatbot a question and it gives you an answer, this is a good starting point. You don't have to do this research from scratch. You just have to verify that information and maybe even enhance it with some other data that you find on your own. But to take it blindly and act accordingly, this is a big mistake, and it will definitely put you at risk. And the last thing is, well, it relates to the same point, not to be dependent on AI. Always try to be more innovative. Remember, AI is very limited. It does it doesn't see everything. It's a computer. It doesn't see the environment surrounding it, and the scope is very limited, and that limits its ability to be creative or innovative. So don't be dependent. Use your mind. It can do much more than what the AI agent can do or help you with.
Kareem, thank you very much for being with us today and for providing us with these, great pieces of information. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Muhammad, for having me, and I hope that I was able to shed some light or share some valuable information.
You absolutely did. Thank you very much again, Kareem. Thank you.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, if we were like to come to a conclusion here, um, always remember that AI was made by humans. So don't overestimate AI and look at it as a demigod. So AI will never be omniscient, will never be omnipotent, will never be omnipresent, will never be invincible, because it was created by humans, and humans are none of these. So don't think that the creation can surpass its creator, even if it seems to do so, but in reality it will not. And again, since it was created by humans, humans generally are not angels or devils. There's the bright side and the negative side. There's the good side and there's the evil side. So always watch out for both. Remember, it's created by humans and for the service of humans, but there's always this positive and negative side. So always use it with caution and keep the moral side alive. Because morality and ethics is what differentiates humans from all other creatures and all other things. Dear viewers, until we meet again, hope you have a very pleasant time. Thanks for watching.